Okay, here we are back building the compass, and we couldn't find the part that goes on the top. So I did email the company that I bought the boat and explain that that part was missing. And let's see if, you know, it takes 2 months if they send it at all. But what we decided to do, looking at the dragging forces and the way the sail is, I think that doing it this way, and I'll show you, is actually maybe going to be better. We'll see. I actually just tied the front of the sail up to the top. There's a place you can tie it up there. And the reason is, I think you can actually get curl out of it by adjusting the vane, where the other way that they had it, I'm not sure if you would get, you know, by tying the back part of the sail up there. So this design is more like the Dragon Force. So now we also went ahead and tied the sail on, and we didn't use the little metal clips because basically they're not very good, and they pinch and they get hooked, they come unhooked, they're just a mess. So if you look in the Sail Wars videos, you'll actually find one where I demonstrate this method of tying your sail on the proper way using a toothpick, and that's what Weston is doing right now. He's actually tying the sail to the mast, and I always make sure you do 3 or 4 knots, and make sure you do square knots. And what that means is you tie it one direction, and then the next time you tie the knot, you flip your hands so you're tying it the opposite direction. It kind of makes a square. That's why they call it a square knot. So depending on you know, how strong it is when you pull, to make sure your knot is secure, at least 3 knots, if not 4, is a good amount. And then he's made his little ties. He's pulled on the sail a little bit to make sure it's still tight. Okay, and then he's going to trim it. Later we'll go back and we will burn that a little bit closer and then put some super glue on it. So now he's got one more to tie, so he's going to have to move his toothpick. And we can zoom in and see how that looks.
Still tight?
Yeah, that's going to be good. And now he's working on this one.
And you tape the sail to the tape? Like this?
Just all you have to do is make sure that toothpick stays up close to the mast, because basically by using a toothpick you're ensuring that you have the proper gapping between your sail and your mast. Without the toothpick, a lot of people tie them too tight. There are other ways of doing that. We've had comments on the other one. Somebody said another great way of tying them. So if you go find that video on how to tie your sail to your mast, it's also a Sail Wars video. Look at the comments below. Some people had, you know, good suggestions. This is the way I like to do it.
Okay, I'm doing the next knot.
Okay.
For the first knot for this one.
So of course, you know, we're going to look at the performance of this boat with tying it differently. Up at the top, I think it's actually going to perform better than the way the factory had it, because we can now put curl into the sail better. You know, leave a comment in below, because I'm curious, any of you out there that has a compass, how's it working for you? And did you end up taking off the line on the back part of the sail? The other thing, let me zoom in on it, is this vane right here has got to be like the cheapest vane I've ever seen. It works, but basically what you do is on the other side of this nut, there's actually a screw, and you unscrew that, and then you can actually slide the mechanism, I guess, up and back, and that's how you adjust your vane. So there is no easy screwing it, you know, real quickly. You actually have to unscrew a screw to adjust it. Now, that's probably not a problem, and that's just the way they do it. It's just different, but we shall see. You might be tying that too tight.
Why?
Just make sure it's nice and straight. I'll show you what I'm
It
talking
might be
about.
too
What
tight.
he's doing.
I think it might be a tiny bit too tight.
Let's see.
Like, when I try and pull it, it's kind of just there the entire time. It doesn't move like these.
But when you pull that toothpick out,
Maybe.
you probably are going to have the proper amount of slack. So we're going to see. This is firsthand of what happens, and yes, that's fine.
Okay.
If it's maybe a tiny bit too tight, we'll see.
A little bit.
Okay. Okay, so there we go on that.
A little tight, but I think it's all right. Maybe it's better on this side.
I think I would retie that one you just did. Just a hair looser.
I don't know if I can undo it.
All right, so I'm gonna turn off the camera and we'll come back.
And redo this one.
Yeah, just redo that one.
So since the last time, I went ahead and tied the bottom of the bigger part of the sail, and we've also connected this part to the smaller sail, and we've connected the hook down here as well. Now, my dad was saying this looked a lot easier, and it felt really easy to do this because it was already pre-done for you. Instead of having to tie all this yourself, it kind of already comes pre-equipped. So we were able to do this really easily, and we get to move on to the next step.
Yeah, well, basically, they put the bowelsies on, they cut the lines, everything was tied, and all you had to do is hook this right there to that. All those bowelsies were there, all the lines. I mean, this was actually a joy to do all this rigging. So, okay, so let's move on to the next thing. Okay, since the last clip, we have attached the jib, and now we have run the line from the jib. It kind of show them where it goes on the jib itself. It goes right, it's already pre-hooked up, and then you go, it's through there, it goes down to the second to last, and then over, and then all the way down.
And connects to this hook,
And you just,
which the way we did it easier to connect it here was we had turned on the controller and the boat itself, and we moved this forward like that. And that'll be a lot easier to connect it. If you have not turned it on yet, it'll be all the way back here, and you have just enough slack, but you're not gonna be able to do it unless you do this. So that works really well.
and so you're going to need 8 AA batteries because 4 go inside the boat, which are kind of tricky to get in. And then of
For
course,
you.
yeah, it was for me. And then 4 go in the controller. Okay, so let's move on to the next part, which will be hooking up the mainsail. Right, there's a line, and what they do is, if you look at the back side, show them the back side of that sail if we can. Let me get around there. Okay,
They
so
tape the line directly to the sail. So they pre-tie everything, and all you have to do is go ahead and connect it wherever it needs to go.
yeah, can we move the boat around more so it's facing this direction? The back, the back. That's,
Well, look, the stand just broke.
okay, and that's why, you know, you gotta be careful with the stands, or of course you can glue them. That's what I generally do. But this is Weston's handiwork here.
Well, that's not my fault. That's just how it was made.
Here, let me pause the video so I can hold the boat.
Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take off this tape, which was connected to this line. From there, we're going to take the end of this line, feed it through this black piece very carefully. It'll be kind of hard. I'm trying, but it like expands as you push it in.
Yeah, they can be tricky at times.
Like,
Yeah, on the Dragon, there's a part on the jib that when you take your sail assembly off and on, it's really tough to slide back on. and they recommend tying
Let me try
another
doing this.
thread to it.
I'm just gonna push down on this really hard real quick. That should flatten it out real well.
So this little design thing they have here is like totally different from the Dragon as far as to get your line on your main down to, I guess, what you'd call a centered position. And it's actually a pretty good way to do it. The Dragons, they use a different style to where, while he's doing that, let me grab a Dragon.
I'm trying. This thing does not want to go in.
Okay.
Are you sure it's actually supposed to go through here?
Yeah, pause.
So I just checked the bottom.
So here's how a Dragon is done right here. And you can see it comes down from the boom and it goes through that ring, and the ring is kept in position by basically tied lines that go all the way across, and then one that comes down out of where the mast goes in. There's a, well, actually, it's the screw that holds your keel. Remember that big long thing we talked about on the bottom of the boat? So there's a little ring. Now, on the older models like this version 5 I'm holding in my hand right now, it did not have that piece that came out of the bottom of the boat. It just had the parts that went across. Version 6 had the part that comes up out of where the keel recess area is. So I kind of modified my boat to include that. So let's see how Weston's doing.
I can't get it.
If he can get it through in the hole there.
I'm trying, but like keeping it straight, and also I like if you look down through this hole, part of the black part kind of sticks out, so it's smaller than just that hole. As crazy as that sounds. You want to see it?
No, I trust you.
I'm telling you, it cuts off. You have like half a hole.
So you have half a hole.
Yep.
So is there anything else we could stick down through there?
Toothpick.
Toothpick. You think a toothpick's gonna fit?
No, you don't need to fit it. You just need to break it a tiny bit.
Okay, let's see.
Where's the toothpick we
Well,
have?
how about this little screwdriver?
Maybe.
That's gonna be too big.
Too big. I think the toothpick will work better than
Okay. Here's the toothpick again. Okay. Probably won't fit either, will it?
Yep, so I broke it just a tiny bit, but it's to actually fit this through this hole.
So, you know, it might have been from the factory, had a little piece of plastic that didn't quite
And look at that.
come out right.
I was not lying.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
But the knot's not going through now.
Maybe use those pliers you have, if you can reach the bottom
And like
part.
yank it through?
Yeah, yeah, just pull it through. There you go.
Go. Now we need to hook it in here, which I'm going to open this up now. I've put the pliers on this so many times, it'll be refreshing for the line to be opened up.
Again, they made all this pretty darn simple, right? It's so much easier than doing a Dragon where you have to constantly cut. Oh, you got to make this 120 millimeters long. And okay.
Yep, it's in.
So, and some other things to show you guys is the way it appears, like you have it all the way in right now, right? Is it all the way in?
All the way in?
Yeah. Okay, so you would want this to be pretty, you know, close to center. So I think, right, on this one, this is how you tighten it, right here. You just pull this back, and voila. It's actually, let's see. Okay, it's actually a good system. I like that. We'll see how it pulls out, okay?
It barely rotates right now.
Because you're going to want this, you know, pretty tight, okay? Because you just want it to move a little bit, okay, in position.
Don't you want this to move quite a bit?
No,
Grace?
no, watch. Okay, let out the sails. Okay, so this in the wind
There we go.
is going to go about 90 degrees, a little bit under, and that's fine. Okay, pull it in. And on these smaller boats, the dragons, you want it pretty close to center. And this is about right. You want just a little bit of give to it. Now on the jib, you want the jib to point about right in here. So right off of the bow. So we have to actually loosen this one up, which would have that pull back there. Let's see. Okay, and actually that's about right. I did it right the first time. So I don't know if you can see how far I have it here. And what I do is I went out and bought a little hobby, like a little paint marker with a very fine tip. And once you mess with your boat for a little bit and find out the exact adjustment for normal conditions, I just put a little mark right there. Some people put tape, Sharpie works, but you know, find out where you want it. The other thing you can adjust is it came with all this already tied, the little bowsy right here. You can adjust this fore and aft and actually how close down to the boat, because you want this to be pretty darn close down to the front of the boat. Maybe even like right there would be better. So all we have to do is take this and pull. Let's see, it's kind of hard to get to the thing on that. Okay. But there you go, right there. I think, you know, we'll look over this boat a little bit more. Of course, it's got the hatch, excuse me, that goes right here. The one thing, oh, you know what we didn't do yet, come to think of? We did not adjust, before I put this on, we did not adjust the rudder. Now, remember how we said we're going to adjust the rudder at the end? And the reason is because we had to make sure that the rudder was in the right position. Now, zoom on in here. Let's see if you can see. Okay, can you see the one that's moving?
Yep.
Okay. So you want that centered in the middle when you make sure that your rudder is centered. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and you've got to find a little hole in this chrome piece and get it to go through there, okay? And make sure by looking at the back that the rudder is as straight as possible, just like that. And then, can you hand me that small Allen wrench, the small one? Okay, then you come down from the top and we're going to tighten it. Okay, pretty tight. Okay, it still looks straight. Then we're going to do a test. Okay, now it looks pretty good. Now, sometimes with controllers, you get the rudder is actually backwards, okay? When you push to the left, it actually will go to the right. And so it depends on your controller. You have to switch that sometimes. So let's see. This one is correct, which is a good thing, but you always check that before you put your boat in the water. And the way you can check that is, when like you go to the right, you want to make sure that the front of your rudder goes to the left. So the opposite way that I push here, it should be going, okay? See, I'm holding left and yet the front is to the right, okay? And that's how you make sure that's correct. The other thing we're going to look at is we're going to get an initial look at the sails. You might want to zoom out a little bit on this. Okay, right now you can see that it's pretty tight right here, and because these were all folded up, they're not real straight, and I'm really hoping the way we tied it is going to work here. But let's look at the whole sail, because what you want some curl in the sail, and I'm going to show you. I explained this earlier to Weston. Okay, what curl basically is, my way of telling somebody how it is when you have the main boom, or it could be the jib, right in the middle of this line, the backstay line. Okay, the amount of curl is adjusted by the vane. That's the part that hooks into the mast. And the farther over this lies, the more curl you have in it, and it's kind of like the more bend you have in it. And depending on the wind conditions is how much you want there. The other thing we're going to adjust is how much the sail actually has room right here, like how much it cups the wind, how much wind it can grab. In light winds, you want more of a cup, so more room in here, and in heavy wind, you want less. Okay, but you're never going to want it straight across, just so you know. Some people, I've seen some very good racers, and they say they measure, they take a ruler and they actually stick it there and they have all figures. And I've seen other really good racers, all they do is stick a finger or two in there, and they just kind of know from wind conditions. So sailing, you know, they call it stick time. You got to get stick time so you understand. And believe me, when you start thinking you know it all and know how to do things, you're going to take last place in a regatta, and then you're going to have to rethink everything. So anyways, so I'm just going to do it visually right now. And as you can see, I've probably got, let's see, I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to do it in millimeters. Right there, I have about 2 centimeters, which is 20 millimeters, right? To center. I'm actually going the center of the sail from the center of the boom. So that's a good starting point for, you know, winds about, I'd say, 6-7 miles per hour. The front, we're going to go just a tad less. So I've got it right now. It's actually pretty decent. Just under about, I'd say, about 170 millimeters. But here's the thing you got to know. In very light wind, you're going to really want to get more room into this. Okay? So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to put the lid on it, and we're going to step out to the water, and we're going to let Weston sail it around a little bit, and we'll make sure everything works properly.
Alright, so to ensure your boat's good, you need to move each trigger back and forth. So we're going to push this in, and you can see that's moving correctly. And now for the other trigger, you can see we're moving good. And like he explained earlier, make sure it's going the right way. And now we can set it in the water. We can steer. Wow. Look at that. And it's working. There's like no wind. Let's see how fast it goes. I'm going the right way for that, right? Yep. Look at that. And I got my sails out because the water is going this way, right?
The wind, you mean?
I mean the wind.
Yeah. Well,
So you can kind of just let it coast. Actually moves pretty good. I thought it wouldn't do this good. Isn't that fast? Pretty fast.
You know, that seems like a pretty fast boat from initial for not really adjusting anything.
Yeah, obviously it's not like race ready, but overall it works really nice. Bye. We're leaving. Should I still have my sails out here?
Well, you always want your sails to be about 45 degrees to well, you want the wind to be blowing into your sails, but not,
So like this.
and so your boat can, it's usually about 45 degrees.
Yeah, I'm doing it. Look at that. Real good.
Okay, and when you know that you're like losing the wind, the jib, which is your small front sail, will start fluttering. And if the mainsail's fluttering, you definitely have lost the wind. But if the jib is fluttering, that's how you can tell you're about to lose it. And what you do, if you want to continue going the same direction, you have to just turn your boat a little bit more towards the way that it wasn't fluttering. So once you pull it over here, and I'll put a little bit of an adjustment on your sails.